Welcome back to Lady on the Street podcast. I'm your host, Priscilla, and today we're doing something new. This is going to be a solo DOLO episode, and that means we don't have a guest. It's just us, you, me, the camera, wherever you're listening or watching. Yeah, so I wanted to just come on here and talk a little bit about where we're at here on Lady on the Street. So, this idea really started, about 6 months ago. 6 months ago, I had casually mentioned to my husband that I wanted to start a podcast. It's something that I had thought about for years. I would joke with one of my coworkers, her name's also Priscilla. I would say, we should start a podcast called Two Peas in a Pod. But that was before the pandemic. And even though I was, like semi serious, we never did. And that's okay because it led us here. But, last summer, I was talking with Andy and I mentioned to him that I wanted to start a podcast. Didn't think anything of it. And literally the next thing I know, we had a package show up at our door and it was podcast equipment. And he was like, well, if this is something you want to do, like, here you go, let's do it. So we started in August. I was like messing with equipment, trying to figure out, how to do this. I was watching videos and there's some stuff on there that was helpful, but nothing that I watched that really went into depth on like some of the things that I ran into. So that's why I'm doing this episode, just so that people that are listening can, kind of get the vibe of like what's gone on now that we're 10 episodes in and just kind of explain a little bit about the journey. So in August, we, got this equipment. We started messing with lighting. We, redecorated this office space, which is in my house because I had paint on the wall and we tried to film an episode, Andy and I, and it just like, it just wasn't working. So with his help, we revamped this room a little bit, made it a little bit more podcast friendly, which that means nothing because you could literally record a podcast wherever you want. But I wanted it to look a certain way because that's just how I am. So yeah, we invested a little bit into the room, into the space, and it wasn't until early November, if you know, you know. In the early November, I invited my first guest on, Angel. I was so excited that she said yes. I explained to her like what it was going to be about, and she was like, "Say less, I'm there." So she came in, we recorded, and when I say we recorded, we're using. I knew I wanted three camera angles. I wanted a close up on her, a close up on me, and a wide shot. And so we're using our phones. I have my phone, my husband's phone, and we steal my daughter's phone whenever every time I record this. So we don't have cameras. We're using our iPhones. So if you're looking to start a podcast or looking to do something where you're filming, iPhones do work. We invested in this equipment right here, and we got some secondary sources, which is this microphone that you see right here. And so I have these two because there have been times where I forget to hit record on the main audio and rather than the entire episode going to shit, like we have backup audio just in case. So I always explain that to people when they come in as well. But yes, it was early November. We recorded the episode, and at the time, I didn't have like a really good computer. I had been editing short form content on my phone through CapCut, which a lot of people are probably familiar with. But CapCut's great when you're using it for like TikTok or Instagram Reels, that kind of thing. But once I threw in an hour plus long video to edit, it was just insane, right? I was spending so much time on my little iPhone screen in bed every night because that's the only time that I really get to work on this. Editing, I was trying to edit a three camera video on my iPhone. And I don't know, I want to say that I spent at least 2 weeks, like kind of from beginning to end, going back and forth. And mind you, I only get to edit, until like I'm in bed and then I get tired and I turn it off. So it was about 2 weeks that I was like, okay, I'm going to edit this. And then at the end of the 2 weeks, I was like, all right, this is ready to go up. So the first thing that I learned is do not edit on your phone. If it's like an hour plus of video, do not edit using CapCut on your phone. There are so many free programs that I could have been using on a laptop. But yeah, it was trial and error. Everything seemed good and dandy, and I thought everything was fine. But once I did launch in December, I invited some family. We invited family over to have a watch party. We ordered some food, we had some drinks. It was really cute. And we pulled up the YouTube episode, put it on our TV, and I was like, all right, this is going good. Like they were laughing. I was so happy until I noticed that there were several parts where our audio and our video was not in sync, meaning Angel would be talking and her lips are moving a certain way, but the sound doesn't match. And so I saw that and was like, what? It didn't look like that on my phone. I was so upset about it. I like my heart sunk. I just was so proud of what I had done. And then to see it playing back and it wasn't what I thought it was, my family was like, "It's okay. It looks good. Like, don't even worry about it. The conversation was funny." And mind you, it's a podcast, so some people are just listening to it, and they're not watching. But for those that were watching, I was just like devastated that I had put so much time and effort into it, and then it wasn't, clean cut as I thought it was. So after that episode, I was like, okay, I need to be, serious about this. I need to really like look into some video editing software. And I looked up, everything from Final Cut to Premiere, and everything that I've ever heard is that people use Premiere. Like I've never really talked to somebody who has used Final Cut. So I went ahead and went out and got a better computer, um, so that I had more storage space. I had looked up, like what does a content creator need? And I did have to invest in that a little bit. And then I got a 30-day trial of Premiere Pro. And this is a product by Adobe that so many people use, right? I had never used it, and the only video editing that I have ever like really used is going to be CapCut, or like what is the one on Windows Movie Maker back in the day? Like, yeah, so I was kind of starting from ground zero a little bit, but CapCut taught me a lot in like video editing, so it wasn't completely foreign when I started using Premiere. So I had 30 days. I was like, okay, I have 30 days because this is going to run out and I have to figure out if I can, like, is it compatible with me or not? Because I don't want to start paying for it if I don't really like it, but I needed it to get the next episodes up. So I, did some searching, and I started editing my next episode, and I was like, okay, this one lines up, and I can clearly see because the screen is big enough and all that good stuff. So I took care of that problem. But the second thing I learned is that even if you don't know anything about, a program, literally, like, and anyone will tell you this, but I really learned it that YouTube will teach you anything. I had so many questions, on like specific things that I needed to do, even just the tiniest things of like scaling a video, how to do that, how to, you know, change the color a little bit, how to mess with the audio levels. Like there's a how-to video for everything. And so that really saved my life when I was learning how to use Premiere. And so yeah, that's my second thing that I learned. So, number one, don't edit on your phone. Number two, if you have questions about anything, literally anything on earth, I'm sure that there's a YouTube video for it because at least that's what I found. Number three, I was, so invested in like getting people to come on, getting content stored so that I could, have it in my back pocket once I did launch, that I was really focused on just like asking as many people as I could to come in and do episodes. And so one weekend, I had asked two guests to come in on the same day, and I spaced them, what I thought was enough hours apart. And so, yeah, everything would have been fine if everything would have gone as planned. But in my life, that rarely happens. Nothing goes as planned. So I should have known that from the beginning. I invited these two people on. The first one, we got through the episode. Everything was good and dandy, and I was so happy. The second one, I hadn't realized until that person told me they were running late. And I was like, okay, that's fine. She's cool. We can handle, right? I'm late sometimes. So it wasn't a big deal. But then I had realized, you know, I scheduled something for my family like an hour after that podcast was supposed to start. The taping was supposed to start. And there was no way for me to reschedule. We were having the Grinch come visit, right? There's a young girl who her mom and her, they dress up as the Grinch every year for Christmas and they come surprise kids. Well, it sounds fine, except my kids do not like the Grinch. They are so scared of the Grinch. So the way it ended up working out was that my guest for the podcast had got here at the same time as the Grinch was coming. And my guest was so gracious, right? So gracious about it. They sat here while my kids were throwing fits. They were so scared. They were crying. It was like chaos in the Caraman house, okay? Chaos in here. And everything was fine. The Grinch left. We were ready to film, but my head was just like not there. I had scheduled too many things in the day. I was overwhelmed. I felt so bad that they had to wait through that Grinch visit. Like, my head was not in the game. And so I totally, completely, 1000% regret booking two people in the same day because I felt after we taped the episode, it was really good. And I learned so much about my guest, but I just felt like I didn't give my, full undivided attention to him because I just, like, I don't know, it was so chaotic. I couldn't shake the fact that, like, my kids had just thrown a tantrum right before. So yeah, that's the third thing that I learned is that, like, even though I was so insistent on getting the content that I needed and making sure that I, you know, had enough people coming in so that I had content to put up, I feel like I sacrificed some of the quality because I was so focused on that? And so that's what I learned is like not to overextend myself when it comes to shooting. It's okay. Like, so far, I haven't missed any weeks, but if I were to run into that, that's okay, right? There's nobody holding me like accountable. I don't have advertisements that I'm like having to put out. This is still just a hobby. So I don't need to overextend myself. And at the same time, when I do that, like, people are telling me yes, I want to make sure that I'm giving them like a quality episode. I want to make sure that this is going to be something that I'm proud to put out there. And I'm not saying I wasn't proud. I just know that I like did not give 1000% to that second taping. And if I could take it back, I would totally do it differently. But right, we're learning. She's learning. Okay, so the next thing that I wanted to bring up. Oh, yeah. If you're starting something new, if you're starting a new business, if you're starting a new career, if you're starting a new podcast, whatever it is, if you're starting to put yourself online cooking or whatever the case may be, do not be afraid to ask for help, okay? Like, I feel like sometimes I'm such a perfectionist. I want to do everything myself. I want to be so hands on. I want to have full creative control, right? But like, don't be afraid to ask for help. And so I wanted to bring up that it is so nice that I have, Andy here because he helps me. What you don't see is before every episode, he's in here setting up the lights, setting up the cameras, setting up all of this setup so that I can create this beautiful podcast, right? He's in here helping me. And if I'm ever stuck on something to like, I'm like, I want to say this, but I don't know how to say it. Like, I will ask for his input, and he's always there to help me. So if you don't have somebody that's just like ready, willing, and available to you, you have to go out of your way to ask for help. But I'm sure that you know somebody, right? What I've told myself is that when somebody comes to me to ask me for help, I I'm never feeling I don't ever feel like, "Oh, what an inconvenience." I'm like, "Oh, they thought to come to me. I really want to make sure that I'm helping them. I'm happy to help?" And I feel that there are more people that are willing and ready to help if you just ask. So like if you hit that roadblock where you sometimes just are afraid to ask because you don't want to inconvenience someone, you got to get that like out of your system because even for me, like I said, if somebody asks me to help, I'm more than willing to do it within reason, right? Of course. But I think there's more people out there that are willing to help. So you just got to ask. So if you're launching anything, if you're creating something and you just need help, you need guidance, like find the person that you think knows, ask them. And if they don't know, chances are they will usually guide you in the right direction. So yeah, I've learned that throughout this process, and I think it's helping. Asking for help is helping. The last thing I wanted to touch base on is like, you know, I didn't really know what all was going to go into creating this podcast. I knew like, great, we're going to ask somebody to come. We're going to talk to them for an hour. We're going to record it and put it together, right? I did not realize how intense the workload is for a hobby, okay? Like, this is at the end of the day a hobby of mine, and oh my gosh, I love it so much. I'm so happy that people are coming in and talking with me. Um, it's been really nice to learn about people that I've already known, some that I haven't known at all, but to learn more about them on a deeper level, to have fun with them. Like I think that I don't know, I love it so much. And so I just didn't realize like how intense it was going to be balancing, you know, my everyday life with like this new little hobby that I have had. But it's been so rewarding in that, like I said, just learning about new people, and seeing that I have, even when there's like one or two listens, or, even just a handful of views on a YouTube video, like the fact that people are actually paying attention in some part, in some capacity, is mind-boggling to me. So I really enjoy doing it. The work, it is intense, but it's just rewarding in that, like, I don't know. I think these people are interesting, and apparently others do too, because I don't know. I think it's great, obviously, right? Or I wouldn't be doing it. But yeah, if you've listened, if you've watched, I just want to say thank you so much. I don't have, a big following yet. She's gonna get there, guys. I don't have a big following yet, but even if you're just paying attention to one or two of them, like, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. We're 10 episodes in. I cannot wait to get back to, filming with people. And yeah, this is a little bit different. It's going to be a solo dolo episode on Lady on the Street podcast. I'm so excited. 6 months in, 10 episodes down, and I can't wait to just continue creating these conversations with you all and sharing them. So, again, don't forget to like, rate, and subscribe. And if you have anyone that you think would be a great guest here, right here next to me, please send them my way. You can send them to me at Lady on the Street Podcast on Instagram. We're also on YouTube, and you can listen on Apple and Spotify. Yeah, please send me an email, ladyonthestreetpod@gmail.com. Send them my way because I love doing this. So, anyway, thank you all for listening. I can't wait to be back next week with another guest. And again, it's Lady on the Street Podcast. Make sure you're listening, subscribing, rate, like, do all those things. All right. Thanks so much, guys. Bye. Bye. Goodbye. Bye bye now.